Everyone, I want to tell you that my secret fantasy is to be Asian Oprah one day. And so I thought, why not use my post-show conversations for me to practice becoming a host? So that's what we're doing. It's like a TV show. And my first ever guest is the one and only Sarah LaFleur. Oh my God. Coming tonight. Tonight we are talking about the feminine mystique, navigating body images during motherhood. You are the CEO and founder of M.M.LaFleur, the premier women's clothing brand for modern working women, and a very much appreciative sponsor for this weekend's shows. So thank you for sponsoring us and believing in us.
Such an honor.
Yeah. And I also want to say how much I love that your company is named in honor of your mother.
Yeah, it is. You're right. My mother has had a huge impact. I think this is true of probably all children, but I don't think I would have started this company were it not for her. I ended up naming it after her. She was a working mom throughout my childhood. And we grew up in Japan. It was pretty rare to have a working mom, especially in the 80s. Very much inspired by her. But yeah, that you're right. That's another kind of connection. Susan and I have many, many kind of surprising connections. And I was just thinking about this as I was finishing watching your show tonight.
Besides the fact that we have the same initials.
Correct. Yeah, that's at the top of the list of the things we have in common.
So I want to just get right to it. You watched the show in New York at the New York premiere in October 2019.
Yeah.
This is your second time watching it. What's immediately going through your mind right now?
Well, it was every bit as wonderful as I remembered it. It really was one of those plays. Oh, cheers. First of all, to an incredible show. Cheers. I hope everybody is grabbing their wine glass as well.
Yeah.
It was really every bit as incredible as I remembered it. And I think the sign of a good play is often the one that you just can't stop thinking about, not just, days later, but even months later and years later. And I think when we had gone to see the show, Susan and I have talked about this a little bit, but it was as I was going through, and actually I think I at that point had given up on multiple years of IVF treatments. And I just thought, wow, like the meaning of becoming a mom and being a mom is so complicated and so nuanced. And I just remember thinking about that. And that was October 20. You reminded me it was October 2018, right?
2019.
19. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. October 2019. So that was, I think, like maybe a month before I did my final IVF transfer, which ended up resulting in my son. But it was a period that I think I was, where I was like processing a lot. And I think your play made me think a lot about, also what I was doing physically to my body at the time, because IVF is, if nothing, just like kind of this incredible physical and hormonal challenge of injecting a lot of things into yourself. And I think I thought about your mom too, and the kind of things we are willing to do to have children and to care for our children. So yeah, those were the things that were going through my head. Heavy stuff, but I think about your play all the time. I think even today after having kids, I think especially now after having kids, I think about it a lot. So
you just published a tell-all testimony of your entire mothering journey in Marie Claire, which I highly recommend everyone to read. I clicked on it, and then it's like something where you're like, you leave a tab open, you're like, I'll look at it later. Like I started reading and I could not stop reading it because Sarah has 3 children under 1 year old right now. She has triplets, which are not triplets. They are full siblings. So you had 1 kid, and then 6 weeks later, you have twins.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Talk about how you are even on this call right now. Like, how are you even here?
They're fast asleep. And I was actually, my little sister, believe it or not, I have not seen her in 18 months. And she just flew in from Tokyo this morning. So she just met them for the first time. And I was just telling her there is something easier about having three all at the same time. Because even when they're crying, I'm like, well, they have each other. So I'm able to like stay strong and not enter the room. And anyways, they're fast asleep. And they hopefully will be for the next 8 hours. But yes, exactly. Fingers crossed, yeah, but yeah, I delivered my son, and then 7 weeks later, our incredible surrogate delivered our twins. And it's been a completely life-changing experience. But I keep coming back to, I think, a lot of what you talk about in the play about this desire to do something for yourself. I think I really, really felt that so acutely. I still do, frankly, because I feel like my body hasn't been my own, not just in, the being pregnant and breastfeeding and all of that, but I think also like the 3 years leading up to it, doing a lot of IVF and hormonal treatments. And I felt like when it was over and I finally stopped nursing, I thought to myself, like, oh my gosh, this is the first time I've had my body to quote unquote myself, for the first time in 4 years. And gosh, I just want to do something for myself. And I think when you said that, you said that phrase several times in the play, and I think that really stuck with me, this desire for women to suddenly kind of self-shield almost, and to want to restore, whatever that might be, whether that's a physical thing or a spiritual thing. So how about you? Have you felt that, and now as a mom, and how does that make you think about what your mom was feeling at the time?
Oh my God. I start off the show showing my mom stretch marks on her belly, right? Like that was what she wanted to have the tummy tuck on, because there was a sag. After 4 kids, it was not what it used to be. And I still look at my stretch marks.
Yeah, I do too.
Like, oh, it'll fade, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, it's not fading. And I look at it and I was like, man, I never was going to wear a bikini. Now I'm never going to wear a bikini, right? Because I was just like kind of chubby, but like, I look at it and I'm like, it's so complicated. This is really the vessel that gave birth to my super cute kid, Art. I totally love him to death. He's amazing, right? But at the same time, my entire body changed. I had a tailbone injury for over a year, could not sit down. I'm like luckily sitting right now. It wasn't until last month that when I go running, I don't like pee on myself or like do a jump squat and like just squirt, or like when I'm laughing, like my body is not mine, and it's like having to just be okay. Like today is not a day we're going to work out. Okay. Whereas before I was like Orange Theory, like I was like all about it. And then,
you're an Orange Theory girl, huh? Okay.
Well, I need to know if I'm winning or losing sometimes, but it's just like, I look at this body and then I go, man, is this terrible to think that I wish I could have a quick solution?
I completely feel the same way. And I wish I could say, and I think this is so much of the content that we're seeing now, which maybe in many ways is a great thing, be proud of your body, a lot of body positivity conversations. This is the body that carried your child for 9 months. And I think as the CEO of a company that is all about empowering women, I don't want to say anything differently. Certainly, I don't want to, and I wish I didn't think anything differently. But I think the truth is, I also have pretty big stretch marks. I was actually just showing my little sister, and my little sister was like, "Wow," she's never really seen this up close. And I think it's and it's something I feel too. And I talked to a girlfriend of mine who's a dermatologist, and she was like, yeah, there's some laser treatments that we could do to get rid of this. And she says not get rid of it, but at least, ease the appearance of it. And I think, I always, like, in my head, I'm like, okay, I could do this, but like, I'm not in the job of modeling bikinis, as you said. So I really would just be doing this for myself. My husband is super supportive and always, says like, oh, it doesn't matter at all. Like, I don't even care. I can barely see it. And you really start to think like, I'm doing this for myself, but what is the self that I've created?
Why?
Yeah, but why? Why is this for myself? So I think about that a lot.
Yeah, and it's complicated. Like my mother, she was a badass bitch. She was a major dark. She was so courageous. She changed the lives of her 12 brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
She did so much for us. So much opportunity and privilege I get to live with every single day. And so that's why I say the line when I asked my aunt, like, why did she do it? And then finally my aunt says she wanted something for herself. Because I think feminism is very complicated, and does feminism mean that we should all just walk around in a burlap sack and not wear makeup? Is that feminism? What is feminism? And for my mother, in the context of the mid-90s, she had come over by boat with very little money, was able to buy a home, sponsor over her siblings, like she was the American dream.
Yeah.
But not feminist for her to set aside some money for herself to do something for herself.
Yeah.
It's very complicated. It's not like she wasn't a self-empowered woman.
Completely. And I get the sense that your father probably couldn't care less. Like it really was an independent decision. And then you have to kind of ask yourself, so like, why is this pressure there? And why are we, why do we feel it? I think we have some questions, Susan.
Okay. Yeah.
So everyone talks about how difficult it is to be a mom, but what can one say to a new mom who believes she is not a good mother because she is experiencing moments of anxieties and depression? Knowing that our healthcare service is so bad that talking to a therapist is not easy and it's costly.
I gotta tell you this one thing. So when I was, preparing for motherhood, how to do a swaddle, which we never even did because they always do a module on postpartum depression.
Yeah.
And it kind of just sounded, it was so extreme. It was like, if you find yourself not being able to get out of bed or like you don't want to do anything, then you have postpartum depression. But what about everything in between?
That's so true. Yeah.
Like I was like, I'm not that, but like some days is so hard. So some form of like postpartum anxiety.
Yeah.
And so in Washington State anyways, there's this thing called a warm line. And you call, because maybe a hotline feels like too much.
I love that. Right. That's a warm line. Okay.
And then so like in a way it's like, you don't have to be full on crisis. You can just be in a place of discomfort.
Yeah.
Call them. And then you know what I found out? I found out that there's postpartum therapists that just focus on like maybe the first year post-birth because it's very specific.
Yeah.
That blew my mind.
Yeah.
And they actually were like, okay, here's your health insurance. This is what lines up. This is who's available. Instead of one of those like giving you a sheet that's like totally out of date. And then you have to like really go hunt. And you're like, I'm so tired and anxious. And like, this was my last cry for help. And like, I can't do more work right now.
Yeah.
That was an amazing service. And I was able to work with an amazing woman for about a good year.
Yeah. Wow.
So I would say one that I didn't even know that there's specialized services.
Yeah. And so it sounds like, Susan, this was like something that you really experienced personally.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm always just been like, I get bouts of high anxiety or like big changes.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't take meds, like it's not, I feel quite functional, but I've always feel like in the gray area of like, should I or should I not, like, that's me being transparent about it. And so I had a therapist, but then I decided to take a break and then have a specialized therapist. So that was something I didn't realize.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, that's a really good piece of advice. And I did not know there were therapists who specialize in that. I've been seeing a psychiatrist for at least a decade now. And And
so New York. So New York.
Yeah, it's so New York of me. But it actually, I started seeing somebody when I was experiencing a ton of anxiety at work, which predominantly is I think the anxiety that I carry. And so I was really worried that I was going to fall into postpartum depression, which fortunately I didn't. But I think my therapist was really kind of looking out for me there. But what I experienced, and I think maybe this might kind of parlay into that, is I had a C-section and I found the recovery incredibly difficult. And one of my college roommates, you know, one of my closest girlfriends who I mean, literally we text every day. And she also had a C-section, but I felt like she barely talked about it. And so after I had my C-section, I mean, I could not believe the amount of pain I was in and how immobile I was for the first time in my life. And I was like, nobody told me about this. Like, I feel like women come in and out of C-sections, and that recovery period for me was so difficult. Simultaneously, I'm trying to nurse, you know, we're waking up in the middle of the night. It was so hard. And a girlfriend of mine who's Chinese American told me about this tradition in China where for the, I want to say it was the 40-day period post delivery, in Chinese tradition, even people who aren't that affluent will often get someone to take care of the baby and then another person separately to take care of you, because the idea is that the mother really needs to heal and to recover. And I ended up buying a recipe book that is based on this 40-day postpartum period, and it talks about all the nutritious foods that you're supposed to eat in this period.
Jamaican stew.
I did not make the Jamaican stew, but that sounds incredible. What's in it?
Yeah, and it was oxtail, but no, I think another mommy friend sent me that book. Yeah.
So that was the period where I was like, oh, I'm not supposed to feel okay right now. Like, it's okay that I feel terrible, and all I want is for someone to take care of me right now. Because I think when I went to my OB, she was like, yeah, everything's looking fine, everything's healing fine, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I get that you think I might be healing fine, but inside I feel completely broken. And so that really made me think about how little talk there is. Like, it's so funny when I think about the baby registry now, when my friends or like family members have a baby, I actually don't send anything for the baby. I send like a spa kit for the mom. And I decided that is what I wanted to do, because that baby is going to be fine in most cases, right? If the baby's born healthy, if you can't breastfeed, you can feed it formula, you can take it to, the doctor, like the baby will be okay, fingers crossed in most cases, but the mom is getting no attention in this scenario. And I even Googled, like, I was like, what are postpartum books? There are so few out there. I ended up ordering 2, but there were so few out there. And I just really wish there were more research sources. I think one book, so, talk about postpartum, the 4th trimester is a great book. And then also in terms of going back to work, there's another book called The 5th Trimester, written by 2 totally different women. The 5th trimester is written by a psychiatrist. The 4th trimester, I want to say, is written by like a yoga teacher.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. But, I found actually both pretty enlightening, and would recommend those too.
Well, I guess I got to write the book, The 6th Trimester.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So, but to answer that person's question directly head on is like, there's something around permission. The permission to rest, the permission to ask for help. Like, I think you and me are both type A women where we're like, we're going to get it done. We're going to do it. I sent you a calendar invite, like that's just like our MO. But then at the same time, it's like, there's a time when we have to relinquish control.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is actively asking for help. And so my baby was born during the pandemic, and as yours were.
Yeah.
And so my mother-in-law didn't come, my aunties didn't come. And I was sitting there going like, oh my God, this period where I'm supposed to heal, nobody's here. And my husband's like, come on, let's go on a walk. And I'm like, oh my, I can't even fathom a walk right now. Like, I had to organize a meal train. You want me to go on this walk? And my saving grace were 5 other girlfriends who also recently had kids. Mm-hmm. And we would just text, and sometimes I would be like, I'm having a really bad day, or like just technical questions on products or whatever. But like, I just needed a place to affirm, to get affirmation, because, and then also I will tell you the other thing I did was start couples therapy during the pandemic.
Oh yeah. I'm really glad you said that. I have a couple of friends who said they literally wanted to just kill their husbands for the first 3 months after they had their baby. And it was a really, really, really difficult time for their marriage, that transition. She was like, I've never hated my husband so much than in the first 90 days after having my child.
I mean, it was just like any problems that we already had were just totally exacerbated because it's now like limited sleep, limited resources, limited everything. Like there's no room for anybody.
Yes.
Sex, like that's just not even on the radar.
Not even on the radar. Actually, and that's talking about resources. That's another thing I didn't know. I ended up I had trouble healing vaginally, even though I ended up having a C-section. And I ended up seeing a physical therapist that really specialized in postpartum. And I didn't even know this was something that you could work on and do. And she has 2 mantras, which is sex should never be painful, and you don't have to pee in your pants. And so those are the 2 things like she really exclusively focuses on.
A poster that says you don't have to pee in your pants.
You don't have to pee in your pants, right? And so she and I think this was also not something really that my OB talked about. So if anyone is listening who is wanting to, who feels passionately about this topic, I mean, the entrepreneur in me always goes to like, someone should start a business around that, but someone really should start a business around that. Or if there is one, just help spread the word.
So what are you talking about? Like postpartum end-to-end services, like wraparound services? Like
completely, it's just like all focused on taking care of the mom. Because there's so many things out there for the baby.
Yeah. I mean, I want to do a shout out that my postpartum PT person, Brenda Matter, therapy is actually on this call right now. She's amazing.
Based in Seattle, is that right?
Yeah, in Seattle. So all of you Washington people.
Wonderful. You are life changers. Okay, Susan, I think you have another question here. I have a number of new moms in my friend circle. As someone who isn't a mom yet, what is the best way I can support them? Thoughts there?
Like when I first came home from the hospital, Art had jaundice. I had this tailbone thing that I just thought was hemorrhoids, but it was like a big tailbone injury. So I actually couldn't have him on me. I didn't buy a pumping bra yet. So I'm literally holding the funnels and like my glasses are like slipping down my face, and like I'm just standing doing this, and it's like the worst. It is bad news bears, and all I get from messages are girlfriends like, hey, how you doing? Congratulations, how's he doing? Blah blah blah. How are you? And I felt like all those questions felt like work. It felt like it was just like another task that I had to attend to, when like right now, like I couldn't even feed anybody. Like no one was being fed. Yeah. And I remember I finally had a breakdown, and I texted a friend, and she had already had 2 kids, and I was like, she was just like, hey, mama, and like hearts or whatever. Yeah. So it wasn't a task. She was saying she was thinking of me. And then I told her what was going on, because finally I felt like I had space, and she was like, let it flow. Girl, let the tears flow. And I would say during the first 2-3 weeks, I cried a lot, like unexpectedly crying. Like I would see like through the skylight, like a leaf fly by, and then like fucking sob.
Yeah. The hormones are raging. Everything is very beautiful.
Yeah. Or like I would really think about the words in Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And I was like, this shit is deep.
Susan, I just did that today. I literally was like, there are diamonds in the sky. I think that is so funny. I literally just had that experience like 8 hours ago. Maybe the wine's also kicking in, but I definitely felt that. So I know we're getting close to time, but I mean, can you just tell us like what is next for 140 pounds? Because I think this is such a powerful play. And I think it tells, even though, your experience is unique. Like it tells, I think, a story that so many women can relate to. And it needs to get out there. So what is next and what can we do to spread the word?
Yeah, totally. Wait, I think we have 20 more minutes.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, sorry. I thought for some reason we had to wrap up at 10:10, which is what I had here.
No, I always need someone to manage me. I like get so into this.
Speaking of managing you, you have 5 minutes until we wrap up the conversation part and really turn into the Q&A.
Oh, good. Okay, good. So we have 5 more minutes, but I need to hear you answer this.
Oh, what's up? I just started a podcast called Model Minority Moms. And it's with 2 other Harvard Asian moms. And we are just talking about like, what is it with trying to be a dutiful daughter and an amazing wife with like great home programming, you know, like the mom of like all, like the PTA president mom and like amazing career. And then like I'm fit and like I have time for my girlfriends and girls' weekends. It's just like, how is this possible? How is this possible? But yet, why do I still feel responsible? And so we talk about the expectations that the world has placed on us, and we get really real about those pressures. So I just started that.
Oh, good. It's in the chat if people want to check it out.
Yeah. Some of the titles of the episodes is "Get Me a Diaper. My Identity Just Imploded." I like talking about my failed love romances with cult leaders and what I learned about long-term partnerships. Yeah. What really happened in the delivery room and me taking selfies with my placenta. So it's just trying to like be honest about what we're not talking about. So that was super fun. That's been launched. So we've got 4 episodes out. And so it was at the New York show, the New York premiere, that a literary agent came to see a show, a friend of a friend of a friend. And for me, I've always been like, yeah, I'm going to scale this story. I've got an MBA. Like, we're going to do play, then we're going to do book, then we're going to do movie, and then I'm going to be Agent Oprah. Like, that was like my plan, which is like a crazy plan.
Are you kidding? I was going to say, so you're on this trajectory.
I mean, I'm 2 for 2. So I find a lit agent.
Don't forget, I was your first guest.
Okay? You were my first guest. You never forget. You were my first.
Yes, that's right. Okay.
and so she finds me and then she says, "You want representation?" My eyeballs fall out of my face.
Wow.
A friend of a friend of a friend invited her. We work on a book proposal all pandemic. And then I get a book deal 2 months ago with Macmillan at Sell It On Books.
Wow.
With Deb Butter, who I keep saying she's like the Anna Wintour of publishing. Maybe she's not on the call right now. And so I'm going to have a memoir come out called The Manicurist's Daughter in 2 years, in 2023.
Gosh, that's so incredible. And wait, so I mean, interesting title change. Why?
The Manicurist's Daughter?
Yeah, from 140 pounds. Is it going to be a broader storytelling?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, what you see is like 65 minutes of like intense action, but like, yeah. I mean, I only mentioned the nail salon like half a sentence.
Yeah, yes.
And I want you to see that nail salon, which was AKA My Bright Horizons Daycare, right? And I want you to see more family dynamics and growing up as immigrants in the 90s, you know, and like give you flavor around that. So, I mean, 140 pounds help you to kill my mother. Maybe it could work. I mean, I guess I didn't even think about it. But yeah, I mean, right now that's what it is. I think it adds more positionality around like, hey, this is talking about giving more voice to low income immigrant workers and the perspective from there. I mean, I think either title could work, but it's, I don't know. I just felt like it was a new iteration and a
deeper storytelling, I guess, around your childhood growing up in a nail salon.
Yeah. We'll talk more about spirit channeling, more about the refugee hustle. And so right now, actually next week, I'm going to a yurt. It has a sauna. It's only a mile away from my house, but I'm trying to get away from my family and just like really focus.
Right. You know, and maybe actually that can be my last question, because I want to make sure we save time for Q&A. You're an incredible artist. And whenever I think about female artists, actually, we had, do you know Amy Sherrill? She did Michelle Obama's portrait, which is really, I think, what put her on the main stage, right? And she was in an MM campaign about 2 years ago. And I thought what was so incredible about her is, so, I mean, she's incredible in many ways, but she's a heart transplant recipient. And on top of that, she basically left New York and moved back home to take care of her, I want to say her ailing mother. Don't quote me on it, but one of her parents was very sick. And so she moved home basically to take care of them for a decade. And she said that, you know, she basically ended up having to balance her passion, her career, and, you know, as an artist, while also taking care of family. And you kind of contrast that with, I think, the legends, right, of Picasso or whatnot. And I think he has, you know, multiple wives, multiple children, just kind of, you know, went off to his castle in Avignon and painted as he wanted. And I think there's this kind of myth. I want to say it's a myth that if you are someone who really wants to be at the top of their game, you have to put aside your personal life, your family needs, all of that. And I think for a lot of successful female artists like yourself, that may actually not even be a...
Oh my God, you're frozen. Are you frozen or am I frozen? Who's frozen?
Sarah's frozen.
Okay, good. She looks so joyful, so full of intrigue.
Oh, no.
I can't wait to hear what she's gonna say. I bet you what she's asking until she comes back is about the double standard of being...
Hey, Susan, I just switched over. Can you hear me?
Oh my God, are you still sober? Wait, what? Okay, you were frozen for like, I don't know, 40 seconds. So you were talking about Picasso's going off into his castle and then...
Into his castle, and you are a super successful artist, and I just think it might be different for women, for female artists. So like, how has it been for you? And you're going to go off to this yurt. So like, what is that going to be like?
See, but even that entire sentence leading up to you're a super successful artist, do you know how many days of the week I wake up and go like, damn, what did I do? Or when am I going to be enough? Or like, crap, like this sucks. Do you know?
It's so funny because we were just talking about your book deal from Macmillan. So.
I know. Well, but do you know what I mean? Like how it can so easily warp like any like, and I'm working with that on my therapist about just like achievement and success and enoughness. You know, like when is it ever enough? So I guess the question here is that I've been thinking about when is it enough? You know, like I read the New York Times about like different brand influencers that like kind of go off the edge, right? Like they get money, they build their brand and all this stuff. And I'm sitting here going like, wait a minute, I actually want all the power and the money too and the influence, but I don't want to lose my mind, break apart my family, and like be freaking out of touch with the reason why I even did this work. And so for me, it's like my mind is so busy all the time. Like it does not stop. It like, and I really need meditation. That's why I actually go to silent meditation. But it's just kind of like, when is anything enough? You know, like, when is like, are we just going to say like, I got to make this amount of money, and then actually it turns into this amount of money, and then it's like, well, how much time is it with your family? Or like, when can you be at a place where you're like, actually, I'm just gonna not. And have you thought about that?
I mean, all the time. I just actually literally in my head said, okay, what for me would be enough? And I think actually that you know one of your questions was what are you tired of holding? And I literally wrote proving myself to everyone. So, you know, I think that's like super, super connected to the things that you just talked about. And I know, I think, well, I want to make sure we have time for Q&A, but I think you already have a question here.
What's the question?
So I'm going to read it out to you. For many Viet refugees, our family stories are painful. You know, I just want to like stop there for a second, because I think even watching your play, and, you know, your parents talking about people they knew whose boats had capsized and that, you know, they had died, and like, God, what a choice they had to make to decide to leave, you know? So there's a healing power to telling our family stories, but some of our family members may not feel ready for their story to be out there. Yeah, that's really interesting. What's your recommendation to navigate this dynamic?
Well, I guess the question is, what's the purpose of it being out there? You know what I mean? Like, for me, it's like, unfortunately, I'm an extremely extroverted external processor. And I happen to also like love performance and entertainment and expression, right? So for me, that's how it manifested. And so the question here is, I'm like, what is your objective? Is it to know the story so they won't be forgotten when they pass? Is it that you hope that they can come to a better place with it and feel less trauma about it? What's complicated across the different generations is that for the older generation, mental health is extremely stigmatized, and recalling things is it will trigger PTSD, and if they're not open to support, then it creates a really terrible cycle for people, right? Because like then and I say that in one of the lines with my dad is just like, after you make me tell these stories, I feel not okay for half a day, one whole day. Mm-hmm. So there's this push and pull about legacy and remembrance and grieving, which actually we'll be talking about in one of tomorrow's shows, which is really exciting, to how do you hold all those things also with mental health. Mm-hmm. So I guess the question here is, what's your objective and how can you still achieve it, and be creative about thinking about all the different ways you can do that. Mm-hmm. Is it one day to have different conversations with them? And sometimes they don't want to tell the story at all. But for me, what I've learned over time is asking different types of questions. So not like, where were you when mom died? Or what do you think of the plastic surgery? It was more like, hey, when you were a kid, did you have a pet? Find like a really not intimidating way in to just learn history. And eventually, like, roads will kind of all lead to each other. And also people do it when they're ready. So I would, I have given lists of questions to my dad, and maybe he was like, no, we're not talking about it. No, like, it's done. We're done. We're finished.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And maybe one day he somehow he answers the question, or he tells it in his own time. Mm-hmm. So there's something around almost my urgency of like, I come from a generation where we're about like instantaneous, like, gratification. Mm-hmm. But just because they don't answer it now doesn't mean they won't answer it later. Mm-hmm. And I think the real question here too is, what do you want to get out of it? And be open to what that answer is, and then seeing how can I get creative in achieving that. Because my dad does not want this out in the open. Not want this out in the open. Like, he doesn't want to watch the show. I told him about the book. It was actually like 2 months after I got the book deal that I kind of mentioned to him in half a sentence. Mm. Like, I'm not like, hey dad, guess what I got? Like, he doesn't want this. And I actually had created a piece called Dear Ba, a letter I wish I could send to my father. And it's actually a letter, but it's in video format. And I'm walking around the Wing Luke Museum in Seattle. It's beautifully shot, but it's talking about the distance in which we feel across generations. Mm. It's a letter I could never send to my father. I stupidly uploaded it to YouTube. And my dad totally loves watching cooking shows on YouTube.
Oh my gosh.
And somehow he saw it. And then he calls me, he goes, what's this? And I was like so caught off guard. And I was trying to like be like really like 30,000 foot about it. And it's like, oh, it's about distance. But like I say things very directly about what he's done.
Yeah.
Create a bunch of controversy.
Yeah.
The two siblings who have supported the show were like, Susan, you kind of went too far.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of sitting there going like, okay, wait, Wing Luke gave me 5 minutes. Like, that was the time I got. So I wanted to talk about this very specific thing, but they were like, this was not fair, right? And so I'm sitting here going like, oh my God, I've gotten myself in a ton of trouble. So I took it down. But now it forces me to think as an artist, like, My job is to humanize people, my family, and we are 100% multifaceted human beings. As we've seen with all the anti-Asian hate crimes, it's just like society has seen us as so one-dimensional for so long, or a certain type of role. And like my job as an artist is to show that we're just all human and we all have pain, and that healing is possible and compassion is possible. And that work, it starts with my family on a ground level. And it is not easy, because I need to like put on my adult pants and have different types of conversations, instead of what I do is I revert back to being 11-year-old Susan, you know? And so there's this push and pull of like, well, if I want to have a different relationship with them and communicate with them in a different way, I also need to do that.
Yeah.
And I had to put on my big girl pants about that.
Yeah. That's a really good way to say this. Your big girl pants. I think we all need to find those to have these super tough conversations with our family. I know we have just a few minutes left, so I just want to get to one more question that I think is in the chat section.
Yes.
There's two more, but yeah, just time check.
So I just wanted to chime in. Actually, I wanted to use this as an opportunity to also encourage others to feel comfortable of turning on, if you feel comfortable, of course, to turn on your video and join in the conversation. And actually, Susan, to your dear Ba, or Ba, YouTube video, I think it really resonated with me, because I also did the same, and I wrote like a thank you letter to my mom, and really it was a tough letter for me, because actually when I was reading through your reflection questions, where you talked about, without mud, there cannot be flowers. And I think that helped me through just having more resilience and confidence in myself, knowing that I'm kind of going through the mud of dealing with kind of like the criticism and this raw feelings of stress from my family. And I actually really resonated with like Anne's question too, where, she was asking about, therapy and how that helped with kind of navigating through feelings around family and just dealing with grief and kind of what was taken away from that.
So the question is, how did therapy help you deal with your grief, and what have you taken away? Sarah, do you want to I know you said it's a 10-year relationship with your psychiatrist. Do you want to talk a little bit about how therapy has helped you processing difficult emotions?
I think my therapist, for me, I call her she's my greatest champion. I really feel that way after 10 years of being together. And I think my metaphor is I've never boxed a day in my life. I've never actually even been to a boxing match, but I think if I were a boxer, right, she's that person who's like in my corner and is the one like throwing the towel over my shoulders in between each round.
Hoarding the water.
Totally. And, I've had moments where I'm like, wait, am I crazy that I feel this way? I feel so anxious that I feel this way. And I think in so many moments, she is the one who's like legitimized my feelings and not made me feel like a crazy person, which is interesting because you usually go to a therapist because you think you're becoming a crazy person. So I think that is the way she's been most powerful to me, is almost just playing back what I say. And she says, okay, this goes back to the question before that, which is many women are feeling like they have to manage career and home life because she's so overwhelmed. And then she often will play back all the things that I say I'm going through right now. And she was like, why wouldn't you be anxious? Mm-hmm. Right. And so that I think is the way I find therapy most helpful, is really just being a mirror for the reality that you're living through. So that's how I've found it helpful. How about you?
The validation of feelings.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like my husband, he's really bad at that. He's so bad at that. I was like, don't come to me with your solutions. I need affirmation. He's like, I am affirming you. I'm like, no, you can't repeat back the word. You need to. So there's basically like people in my life who can provide me the things I need. Yeah. And for a therapist, they're really good at mirroring, right? And like for me, I needed to validate my feelings because growing up my entire life is just like having feelings is individualistic. And being Vietnamese, we have huge Confucian influence. And so that means you're being egotistical and you're being selfish and you're taking away from the group and the collective. Ew, right? And it's like, oh, right, sorry, you know, and so often when I had emotions in my family, they were like, you're too emotional, Susan. You're living in the past. Like, your life isn't that hard. Like, it was just always just like being like dismissing me. Mm-hmm. And then the more they dismissed me, then I would just feel so small and small and small and small and small. And so what I've really benefited from a therapist is that, like, it's okay to have feelings. Like, the book Minor Feelings is true. Like, we've been taught and conditioned that like our feelings are not okay. Yeah. They're not welcome. Yeah. And so it's just been great to have a safe space to have those feelings. They're okay to have feelings. And in a way, like, for me, what I do, and I teach these storytelling workshops, and for me, everyone's like, how do you turn trauma into healing? How do you turn your pain into power? And I'm like, hey, I think my philosophy is pretty straightforward. You got to feel those feelings. You got to free those feelings. And that's how you're going to heal those feelings. Mm-hmm. And it's an ongoing cycle. It's never like, I'm one and done, I'm good. But it's iterative. And, but if you don't even get step one, that space and permission to even feel, like, how do you get to a place where you can be at a place where you're like, wow, be a little bit more objective about it, or like figure out what you actually learn from it, or how it can be stronger. Like, you can't even get to those types of questions when people are like, you're being kind of like blah about it, you know, like a baby about it. And you're like, right. You're like, okay, you know, and it's like, I'm the youngest kid, and it's just like, I'm 36 years old and I still think I'm 11. Like, it's like, I'm like, the trauma is in so deep that like the age, it's like, I always feel like I always joke with my husband, like, I'm the high school quarterback, and like, but now I'm in my 40s. I'm like, put me in, coach, put me in, like, put me back into the last 10 minutes. Like, I got this, you know, like, it's like this like need and for this nostalgia and that moment in time to feel enough. But it's like, yo, like, time has passed. But like, for me to move on, like, I need to be totally able to feel all those feelings and not feel like I need to be dismissed anymore. So shout out to therapy. Yeah.
Thank you, Susan. I just popped in on the spotlight because we are over time, which we did anticipate, because there's no, you know, easy way or clean way to wrap up this conversation. It's the kind that can go on for hours. But I did want to be mindful of time, and that, Sarah, you are on the East Coast. It's a little bit later for you. So we are popping in some information on, you know, how audience members can follow both of you and your work. It's been an incredible time just listening and absorbing your wisdom. So I wanted to just quickly remind folks that we have 4 more shows over this weekend. There are more opportunities to hear from Susan and all of our other special guests. And Sarah, you really kicked off our program on such a wonderful, strong foot. So my gratitude to you for being our first conversation partner.
I appreciate it so much. This is, Susan, this is such an important story, and so many more people need to hear it. And thank you. Really, it's truly an honor, and I am just rooting for you all the way.
Oh my God. And what can we know about M.M.LaFleur? Like, what's next, or what should we know about?
Oh, you should check out the company, M.M.LaFleur.com, for those of you who haven't heard of us. And if you are a customer, we appreciate your business very much, especially through COVID. We have survived, and we're confident we'll continue to be a brand that supports working women, which is actually all women. So thank you so much. And thank you, obviously, to Academy Oakland Asian Cultural Center for hosting us tonight.
Sarah,
thank you.
You were my first.
I won't forget it, Susan.
Never gonna forget you. All right.
All right.
All right.
Have a great night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.